Hello and welcome back to Off Limits, where nothing is off limits when you're living on purpose. I'm your host, Ellen Roars, and happy that you're here for today's episode. On the Off Limits podcast, we talk honestly about the things we don't always say out loud, whether it's relationships, identity, growth, masculine and feminine dynamics, and what it really looks like to live aligned. So, whether you're single, dating, married, or in a season of reflection, this conversation is for you. Most of you know me by now, and you know that I'm sharing these questions through the lens of dating and being single. But again, no matter what stage you're in, whether you're newly dating, maybe newly divorced, you're in a serious relationship, or even a long-term beautiful marriage, I know and believe that these questions will really apply to you. Dating is really just the doorway. The real work is really how we show up before, during, and long after we choose someone. And I would say that this portion that I'm going to share could be a chapter in my book someday because it really represents how I enjoy my singlehood all these years. I've been single for so many. And it's not because I'm avoiding love, it's because I'd rather be aligned alone than misaligned with the wrong person. So let me say that one more time. I'd rather be alone, aligned, than misaligned with the wrong person. And I was looking back on my year. So 2025, we all had a crazy 2025, I'm sure. Going into 2026 here, a little bit like a baby giraffe. But I was thinking, you know what? I ended a relationship early in the year last year, and I didn't date throughout the rest of the year. I really just kind of took my time. I might have went on a date here or there, but really I just didn't want to rush into anything. And not because I wasn't open to love. I've absolutely been open. I want to continually become more and more intentional. And I also was working on quite a few things where I didn't have the time to truly commit to dating. So that was part of it. But during my dating life or career, shall we say, these are the questions I've asked myself quietly, internally, and always before I let someone into my life. And I think it's just a good reminder. So you might find yourself asking quarterly or maybe just once a year, but they're a great way to reflect on you. And I want to share them with you. I think you're going to find them valuable. Let me know. So these are not first date questions. They're quite a bit deeper, but they're not meant to interrogate you. I promise that. I don't want to interrogate anyone. They're really meant to just help you stay aligned with yourself. So as you listen, I want to challenge you and invite you to reflect. Which of these questions resonates most with you? Which do you already feel very solid in? Which one are you like, ooh, I'm doing good with that? And then which ones might you be thinking, I'm going to spend a little more attention on that this year? All right, so we'll dive in. But actually, before I dive in, I want to break down the categories because I thought for the podcast purpose, I should really look and see where do they fall in. So there's 5 categories, and they kind of start with the easiest to the toughest. So number 20, that question is going to be the hardest. So we'll save the hardest for last. So first, it's all about intention and self-honesty. So being intent about who you're dating or why, and that true honest, your self-honesty with yourself, right? Second category is all about boundaries and self-respect. The third is emotional availability and regulation. Fourth is really more on the identity, alignment, and growth. So you as a person. And category 5, well, all this is about you as a person, but category 5 is really evaluating solitude, the choice, and readiness. Are you really ready for it? And do you want it? Or are you able to live a life of solitude? And I'll get into that in just a bit. So let's start with intention because really everything flows from here. When we aren't honest about why we want a relationship, we can unknowingly use people to fill gaps, soothe loneliness, or even distract us from ourselves. So let me know if you've been there. I think we all have at some point in our life. And it's good to really be able to look at yourself and say, why am I in this relationship? So the first questions I ask myself here is, what do I actually want from a relationship? Am I wanting that commitment and that companionship, or am I wanting validation? Or maybe I'm just bored, or maybe I need security. I often know people just stick in a relationship because they feel secure, or maybe it's like, oh, this person has such status, I want to stay with them, but they're maybe not truly in love. So look at, why do I want this relationship and what do I want out of this relationship? Number 2, do I love myself? Or am I looking for someone to fill the gaps? And this one's just a good reminder of, yes, of course you love yourself. When I say this, I mean, are you again looking for somebody else to build up your ego and to give you that confidence versus you being able to feel good in your own skin? When we look for somebody else to fill our joy or to fill our cup, we're missing out. You got to be able to give you whatever it is that you need. So don't ever look to somebody else to meet your needs. And I mean, I hope you understand where I'm going with that. Because yes, you're in a relationship because you do want to feel that love and that companionship, but being able to look at yourself and say, I'm proud of who I am and I'm proud of the person I am. And another good question would be, would I date myself right now? That's another question. That's actually 4. Would I date myself right now? Truly, am I proud of who I am and what I'm doing and what I'm becoming? Number 3 is, am I entering this from a place of peace or desperation? And that can kind of go back to the same question I just said with, are you dating someone or married to someone because you feel that you need them versus you want to be with them? So that place of peace versus desperation. 4, I already said, but I'll say it again. Would I date myself right now, truly? That's a great one to think about. 5, if I never change to think about myself, would I still deserve love? And I hope your answer is yes here. This is kind of a trick question because this is that ability to just see that you are amazing just because you're you. Sometimes I think we don't realize how great we are. And this is me. I believe in God, most of you know, so I won't bring religion into the podcast, but I do love to say that for me, my belief is I believe in God and the Holy Spirit. And I just know that we are amazing just because we are. So I hope that helps. And I hope you know how wonderful and amazing you are. So these questions, these 5 simple questions really slow me down in the best way. It reminds me that clarity is so much more important. Clarity is so much more kinder than chemistry. You can have all the chemistry in the world with someone, but if you're not fully aligned and honest with yourself, you've just got nowhere to go. So the second one, boundaries and self-respect. This one, I want to just be clear that boundaries aren't walls. So I'm not saying put walls up by any means. I still want you to be vulnerable and be able to share and to grow and learn together. But these are more just information. Like, write down, what is it that's important to me? So if you want to have kids, but you're dating somebody that doesn't want to have kids, well, there you go. That's maybe somebody that's not on the same path as you. Or same thing you can look at as somebody is like, yeah, I'm just happy to be in a fling, but I don't want to commit, or I have no intention to get married. And if you want to get married, well, then you got to honor your boundaries and have that respect for yourself to think, you know what, we're not on the same page. We don't have the same really end goals. So maybe this isn't the best fit for me. So the questions that I ask here are really, what are my non-negotiables? What do I want? So perfect, easy one for me is, I don't want a smoker. So easy. If he smokes, I'm like, I don't know if we're going to align. And I never get into a relationship thinking I can change someone, because that's the other thing is, if it's something that I think, oh, well, if he quit smoking, I could be okay with that. Well, you never want to get into a relationship thinking you're going to change someone, because you set yourself up for disappointment there. So what are your non-negotiables? Write those down. 7, can I communicate my needs without guilt or fear? So here is where, if you do have your desires, again, so I desire to be a mom, or I desire to be a wife, I desire to live in the country, I'm not a city girl, whatever it may be, you have to be able to communicate that and see if your person, and of course for a man, if you're like, I don't want to have kids, or I want to get married and she doesn't, have to be able to communicate that. And if you don't feel you can without guilt or fear, that's probably your first sign, right? Number 8, do you set boundaries and do you enforce them? So are you able to set the boundaries? And when you do you actually truly enforce them and not let somebody walk all over you? 9, can I handle someone telling me no without spiraling? So how do you handle that? Because, and I'm not just saying rejection of somebody saying, oh, I'm not interested. I'm just saying, if you say, oh, I'd love to go here for dinner tonight, or let's do this. So I was like, oh, I'm not feeling that. Can you be okay just accepting where somebody's at and giving them the honor to be able to express their feelings, because that's really important too. So boundaries and self-respect. So respect for them, but also self-respect for yourself. And I've met a lot of people who weren't aligned and people that just didn't want to change. And again, that goes back to, if they have no desire to change, don't ever expect that they would change as you got into this relationship. And a lot of times, a lot of you that are maybe married know this, that it sometimes can get worse with marriage, because as they're more comfortable, they're like, this person's going to love me. I'm going to just do me. So something to really think about there. And I think it's really important that if you have to change you to be at peace, then that's your answer. So I hope that resonates or makes sense to you. Let me know your thoughts there for category 2, boundaries and self-respect. Really, just to close that out, self-respect is about noticing and not negotiating yourself away. So emotional availability and regulation, this is category 3. And it's a big category, because a relationship cannot be healthier than the emotional regulation of the people inside it. And so this is what really stung for me in April, once I realized, I was like, wow, this is not who I thought. And, my relationship started out where, as I'm learning about it, he was more of a, I forget what they call it, flower bombing. I mean, it was a new term for me. I think it's like a newer term. We never learned it in nursing school, but it's when people shower you with goodness, right? And they usually do that the first 4 to 6 months. And then you'll start to see some other changes. And I was like, wow, I don't see that we're on the same emotional side, and just wasn't a good sign at all for me. And so these questions really matter deeply. And why I say it's so big is because it allows us to know where we are too. So we all have wounds. We've all been hurt over the years, whether it's childhood or even later on in life. And that's a beautiful thing. Our wounds make us bigger and better. I always think when you have a broken heart, it's like that heart being broken open. When it heals back bigger and stronger and better. So are you healed? Are you just distracting yourself from wounds? And if you are distracting yourself from your wounds, what are you distracting yourself with? And what do you need to do to heal? Those are really important questions to ask. And there's a lot of questions I'm asking you, so don't feel like you have to write them all down tonight. I do have a printout in the link in the show notes. So actually, if you want to just print this out and fill them out as you go, please do. But thinking back, are you healed? Are you just distracted from your wounds? And then 11, am I emotionally available or just lonely? Are you emotionally available or just lonely? There's a big difference, right? 12, I'm going to try to get through these quicker. I realize my podcast here is getting long. What triggers you, or what triggers me, you can ask. How do I take responsibility for it? So hopefully you're able to see, what is it? For me, I had a gentleman cheat on me back in the early days in my 20s. And so there's times that I have to remember, not everybody's like him, right? So there's times that I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm feeling a little jealous. And jealous it's a normal trigger for us. But when I do feel that, I have to remind myself, okay, I need to take responsibility. Not everybody is the same as the guy I dated in my 20s. So that's important to just know. 13, do I know how I behave when I feel insecure or unloved? And it's very normal, no matter how healed you are or how self-assured, it's all part of being human to be a little bit insecure, feel unloved at times. Totally human. But how do you behave when this happens? Do you shut down? Do you act like a 7-year-old child? Do you push back on that person and make them feel inadequate? Those are the things to be thinking about. How do you handle it? Because that's a lot about your emotional availability. And if you're not able to have an adult conversation, then that's a sign that you're maybe not quite ready for that next step. Or in a marriage, maybe it's like, all right, I do need to heal and work on this, because you don't want it to affect the other person either. So 13, again, do I know how I behave when I feel insecure or unloved? A really big one, and a challenging question to ask. 14, can I sit with discomfort instead of running from it? So we're all going to have times when we're sad or heartbroken. I just lost my brother 2 years ago. And I think in relationships, there's times that we're always going to lose someone. You know, a wife might experience her husband losing his father or mother, or, you know, we're always, unfortunately, losing people over the years. How do we handle those discomfort? Or when you lose a job, or you know, you have to go into surgery and you lose you know, your ability to walk for 6 weeks. You know, you're going to have to just depend on them for a bit. How do you handle that discomfort? 15, do I know how I act in conflict, and do I know how to repair it? So when you have conflict, sorry, can you hear? I'm in Minneapolis and we have got lots of riots and all sorts of crazy things happening here. So I'm in, yeah, Riot-apolis is how I want to call it, in fraud soda. I just made that up, but it's been a little bit crazy. Anyways, going back, how do I handle conflict and how do I repair it? Super important, because conflict is not the problem. We all have conflict. No big deal to have conflict, right? And we can grow from conflict if we know how to handle it and we don't avoid it. Avoiding is the problem, and lack of the repair is. So totally fine to have conflict. Just make sure that you are ready to dive into it and feel it, and make sure you're okay to repair it. So these questions in this category really help me to take ownership of my inner world. So I want to know that I can handle my own inner world. See, do you guys hear all the sirens? Hopefully you don't. I don't know if my microphone's picking that up, but it's crazy. Okay, so I got a little distracted. So yes, they really help me know my inner world before asking someone else to meet me there, because if you can't get there yourself, well, it's hard to expect anybody else to be there with you. Category 4, we're almost done. Identity, alignment, and growth. So love, this is something I always think, love should not shrink your life. It should meet you where you are and allow you to grow together and to continue to grow without fear. And so I love these questions, because this is where, you know, when you can say yes to a lot of these, or you have the right answers, that you're in a place that you're ready to grow together. So can I give love without losing myself in the process? So what are the things that you love and enjoy, and can you keep them? So for me, I love doing my podcast. And I noticed when I got in that relationship last year, I stopped doing the podcast. And, you know, that's important. So what is it that you love to do? And are you still doing it? You know, when you start to meet that person, are you making it a priority, and are they helping you make it a priority? Number 17, do I know how I want to be loved? And can I show someone how? So this goes to my love languages. I've done a whole podcast on love languages, and I'll review them quickly. It's from Gary Chapman, but there's always, you know, love languages happen to be physical. They can be acts of service. They can be words or affirmations. They can be gifts, and they can be, oh no. Okay, physical touch. I said that one. Words. Oh my goodness. I'm forgetting the 5th one, guys. If you remember it, plop it in the notes. But I'll tell you what mine are. Oh, acts of service. Sorry. So the 5th one's acts of service, because that is one of mine. So I love quality time, acts of service, and I do love physical touch. I know I have a lot in there, right? But know how you love to be loved. How do you love to show love too? And then make sure you're able to communicate that with someone too. So that's 17. 18, do I choose people who align with me or who distract me? And that kind of goes back to 16. You know, can you give love without losing yourself in the process? You know, sometimes us women, we're nurturers and we just want to give, but men love to give too. That is a beautiful thing about men, is they actually are so giving and so loving. And this, I always go back to intimacy. You know, you think about the male and the female, or the peg in the round hole, right? The men tend to penetrate or go towards us women, where we receive. And so men do love to give. I just want to remind us of that. And so men, if you're not giving, start. Women, if you're not receiving, start. So do I choose people who align with me or who distract me? That was the question that got me going on that. So 19, am I willing to grow with someone, not just be adored by them? So maybe you're with somebody because they just make you feel good, but there's not enough there. Maybe there's not enough depth. and it's just more superficial, or, the chemistry is great, but you don't really have anything else in common. Just a really good alignment and growth question to ask. Am I willing to grow with someone, not just be adored by them? So, and I'll say alignment feels calmer to me than attachment. So alignment is much more relaxed. If you're attached, you're going to feel a little bit more anxious. Alignment doesn't feel rushed. You're going to feel a lot more expansive, and you'll feel, more expansive versus, life pulling away from you, if that makes sense. So our final category is solitude, choice, and readiness. So what do I mean by solitude, choice, and readiness? I feel like this question stands on its own. So you're ready? Here we go. I always like to do my ba-ba-da. So do I like being single, or do I just hate being alone? So here is $1 million question, at least for me. I will tell you, maybe 10 years ago, I did not like being single. I was always like, oh, I want to meet Mr. Right. I can't wait. I just was always like wishing for the next thing. And now I love being single. I'm absolutely in my element, and I don't mind being alone one bit. I just embrace this time, and I'm almost to the point where I'm like, ooh, if I do meet someone, this is going to be tricky because I'm so used to my alone time. And there's an absolute difference between, being single and enjoying it, or absolutely like, I want to find a relationship because I just hate being alone. So figure out where you're at. And being single doesn't mean waiting. It means being able to truly get to know who you are and just enjoy the process along the way. And being single doesn't mean being behind. So don't ever feel behind if you are in the same boat as me. And if you're in a relationship, I'm so happy for you there too. And you can be thinking about this question more, when your spouse or your person is away, can you still enjoy your time away from them and have your own autonomy when they're not around? And there is just such a great season of deep alignment, joy, and self-trust when you can enjoy being alone. And then my final question to you is, can you say, I do want partnership, but I want marriage? Maybe you're in a marriage and you're like, oh, this is so challenging. I don't know if I want to be in this. Then you've got some deep reflection to do. But if you can say, yeah, I want partnership, but I want this marriage, that's great. But the key is to not want it so badly that you would ever abandon yourself to get it. So you still want to be able to know who you are and be comfortable in your solitude. So I know these are some deep questions, and probably even more important sometimes in the long-term relationship. So if you're in a long-term relationship, let me know what question was your favorite. Let me know which one you want to work on, actually, for either singles or coupled folks. And I'll say, out of these 20 questions, I said it in the beginning, which ones feel solid for you? Which ones made you pause? And which ones might you be inviting for more intention to spend on this year? Which ones do you think you're going to focus on a little more? And again, remember, I have the written version of all 20 questions for reflection and journaling in the link below or in the show notes. So check them out. And I always love genuinely hearing from you. So you can never send me enough emails or write enough in the comments. Please, please do, because it's fun to interact together. And then finally, let me know if there's any questions that you ask. Like, there may be questions you ask that I don't even have on my list. So I would love for us to have additional questions. And so before I go, I want to give you a little preview of what's coming next. I'm excited. So, me being in my 40s, I started noticing more lumps and, bumps showing up in places that I didn't used to have, and some absolute changes in my body. So instead of ignoring it, I decided, I got to get curious. And so I've been finding some good folks along the way to help me, and met the wonderful Joey Atlas, who you'll see, and I'll put his show notes in the next episode. But he's an incredible trainer who specializes in body recomposition, confidence, and truly sustainable strength. So I'm excited. We really need this as we get older, and I can't wait for you to hear that conversation. So if today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to follow, subscribe, you pass it on to somebody else that might need it, and make sure you don't miss the next episode. I always just again want to thank you for being here, for choosing to reflect with us, or with me, and for us to reflect together. It's a beautiful time and beautiful community. So I really just can't thank you enough for being here. And I will remind you that there are no limits when you're living on purpose, and nothing is off limits to talk about here. We'll talk about anything. And until next time, this is Ellen Roars, and you've been listening to Off Limits. Sending you so much love, and we'll see you soon.